you look good, you play good. If you play good, when you feel good, and you get paid good. It's something like that. Deion Sanders said that when he was playing in the NFL, David Harrison. So that's what we're talking about here. David Harrison with Locked On Commanders. We're talking about some brand new uniforms for the Washington Commanders. It's going to be a big reveal today. In fact, we got the team president, Mark Klaus. He's going to be on the show on WSA 9 at noon today talking about these new uniforms. And David, what do you think? A lot of people have been buzzing about the reveal of these brand new uniforms.
Yeah, obviously, you know, the burgundy version, the white version are kind of what we expected them to be. A little bit different, glossy helmet coming back instead of the matte helmet that we had last year. And I think that's that ode to history that Josh Harris has been talking about. But the black uniform is the one that everybody's going to be talking about, the Raise Hail uniform, as they're dubbing it, the new logo on the helmet, the new design of the uniform overall. Gone is the weirdly placed W logo on the front. It's supposed to mimic the military rank. And you got the new lettering. I think it's really clean. I think they did a really good job.
Okay. All right. So how big of a deal is this going to be for the fans? Because we know the fans have been talking about a bit of the vintage days, the old school days, the days of winning and tradition and Super Bowls and old RFK. And then you have the blend of the new ownership moving forward. So we got to blend the old with the new. So how big of a deal is this for the fans?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the fans are mostly concerned with winning, right? Which is exactly where the concern should be. But for those who had, they wanted that spear back. They wanted that tie to history back. I think it's going to be very, very, it's a good move forward, right? I think you have that population that is kind of stuck and kind of dug into where they're going to be, and that's fine. You know, that's where the passion comes from. But I think that you have to at least appreciate the effort that the team has made and the organization to reconnect that history with what they're doing moving forward.
All right. So you like everything you see here?
I do. I think it's clean. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing him in person.
Right. Very clean, very good looking. And then look, that kind of reminds me of back in the old days of the Joe Theismann era, the Doug Williams era, the Mark Rippon era, the Joe Gibbs era, the Hogs, all of those different things with the color combinations there. So they've got the draft coming up. The timing of this, tie all this into the timing when you're talking about the change in the uniform, moving to a new era, the draft coming up, having a high pick in the draft, and what this actually means for the team and the fans as well.
Well, I think it's a good time to do this, right? We're a little over a week away from the NFL draft, so you have this kind of sense of renewal, right? Young men are realizing their dreams next weekend and entering the NFL, and look, some of them even kind of go back to the old school days and maybe grew up watching some of these older players on film and idolizing them and you know pretending you're Art Monk if you're a DMV product, you know that's a name that you hear even if you didn't get to watch him play because you're a little bit younger, and it's an opportunity for the brand to not only move forward, but it's going to be really cool to see that #1 pick, that first pick that the Washington Commanders make, hold that new jersey up for the first time, and really just, again, just tie in what has been and what is to come, and hopefully it's greatness then, greatness in the future.
Greatness all the way around. And also there's this. We got the draft coming up.
Absolutely.
The draft is coming up in about a week. They got the #7 pick. A lot of pressure to get this right based on what happened last year. You and I have talked about this. Real quick, give me a 10-second answer about where you think they might go. Keep it, trade it, or you don't know at this point yet?
So I think if Sonny Styles is there at #7, that's the pick, and you just deal with the rest of the class as it comes. If Sonny Styles is gone, I think Adam Peters is going to try to trade back. If it's not a trade back, it's a wide receiver. Even if it's trade back, I think wide receiver is the priority.
Okay, all right. You know what? We're going to get more into David's take on this draft, as well as we got two other players that are going to join us to talk about the draft as well. Ken Harvey used to play with the Commanders. John Booty, who played with a number of different teams. We're all talking about the draft, that #7 pick, keep it, trade it, who should they take? That's all coming up right after this, right here on WUSA 9 Plus.
Of course.
And stick around for our draft special. All right, and with the 7th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders pick to be determined. Welcome to the NFL Draft Special on WUSA 9. I've got Ken Harvey, former Washington linebacker, Cal Bear, class of 1988, first round, 12th pick for the Arizona Cardinals. I see, and you brought some souvenirs. That's your original helmet.
My original helmet.
Right.
Yeah. This is me, right?
Okay, all right.
Scratches, all that stuff.
The whole 9 yards.
They with that helmet, that was the first year of this helmet, so they normally put them in their back pocket.
Right. And then
just teasing, Ken.
Right. Okay.
That came out the same year you did, right?
He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, and we've got defensive back John Booty from TCU, the pride of Carthage, Texas, 1988 10th round draft pick. 257th pick overall. You played with the Jets. You played with the Eagles. You played with the Giants, the Cardinals, Tampa. Y'all actually played together.
Yeah, in 93.
In Arizona, yeah.
Yeah, in Arizona. And we also are going to be joined by David Harrison, who is the host of Locked On Commanders podcast. But guys, I want to start with you because we were talking about this NFL draft. We're going to do it this way. We're going to start with when you two were drafted in 1988. Right. Talk about what that experience was like. You're a rookie, or you're in college, you're trying to become a rookie in the NFL. What was that experience like?
Wow, 38 years ago, Ken. Can you remember that?
That's funny. You're going to have another notch in my helmet.
There you go. It's violent.
So for me, coming up, leading up to it, everybody's like, you'd probably be 5th round, 6th round, something like that. Then I had 2 postseason games with in college, East-West Shrine games, Senior Bowl. I was most valuable defensive player of both of those games. And then I did well in the combine. With the combine, and we had talked about it, we mentioned it before, running the combine, all the testing and stuff that they do, it wasn't a big thing. I had regular tennis shoes on, all that stuff. So I had to do well in that. And then all of a sudden, I get drafted. Team I never heard of, Cardinals.
They didn't even talk to you or do anything.
They didn't say anything.
Right.
And they had just moved to Arizona. So they called up out of nowhere and said, hey, Ken, you're on the phone. Stay here with me. How would you feel about being a Cardinal? And I'm like, give me a paycheck. I feel great. And there you go. I got drafted, and then I had to earn that spot.
Right.
For me, I was supposed to go like the 5th through the 9th pick in the draft, and I didn't. I was frustrated. I was in Atlanta, and I decided to go home. And I learned I got drafted by the New York Jets at the Atlanta airport.
Wow.
And I started celebrating with a lot of strangers. But my goal was to go out and compete. And at first mini camp, I did just that.
Back then, when we played, this was, you come out of college, you played for fun. It wasn't, you didn't get money or anything like that. You went into the pros. Now it's just grown men. It's their job, it's their livelihood, it's their family.
It's everything.
And then you walk in, and they know you're there to take somebody's job, somebody that's a teammate. So it's competition to prove how good you are and earn respect,
And even at the combine, this is, I think, the 2nd or 3rd year in Indianapolis, but, you're there to just, we didn't know how to run the 40, just got there and run. You do your skill drills and all that. So you're there looking at the guys. I'm looking at the guys from the University of Miami and Oklahoma, and I'm from TCU. We didn't do a lot of winning. And those guys like, man, these are national champions here, And so that's a little bit of fear at the same time, but when it's time for you to compete, you compete.
Some guys look like Greek models. Take shirt, everybody.
Right. And that shoots them up the draft board.
Right.
Because they could be in a different position, and as soon as they put the tank top on and start running around, these GMs are like, oh my gosh, I got to have him.
It doesn't necessarily translate into being a great player. And there's 3 things I always judge by. I guess they judge by is your heart, your mindset, what you know about the game of football, and your natural ability. Those 3 things would dictate who's a great player. What they oftentimes don't push as the top is your heart. It's hard to measure that, but that's what game film is about. You'll see a guy running nonstop, all that stuff. That can measure a lot.
And with that heart, Ken, you talk about mentality, and then it goes back to your college coaches. Sometimes you don't have a great senior year, or now guys come in as juniors. Coaches, the scouts or the secondary coach, in my case, came back and said, "What's going on?" So they will look at your junior year. They see he was a playmaker. What happened? So they're going to ask questions from you. They're going to do their due diligence, ask questions from your coaches, your college coaches. What type of player is he? Is he a hard worker? Is his motor always running? Is he coachable? Can he coach himself? And so that's what you take in the draft.
All right, let's bring in David Harrison right now, because I want to talk specifically. We heard about you guys' experience. I want to talk specifically about that number 7 pick. David is the host of Locked On Commanders podcast. David, that number 7 pick is crucial at this point. Now, they could either take someone or they could trade down. What do you think, from your experience of covering the team, what do you think they need to do with that number 7 pick? Who do you think they have their eyes on? Or do you think they need to trade it?
Yeah, I think they definitely, bottom line is they need to find a way to make an impact on their 2026 roster with that number 7 pick, whether that is to stick there and pick a player. To me, linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State, he's the guy that if he's on the board at number 7, if he somehow makes it past the New York Giants, which is where predominantly he's mocked to go in the first round, if somehow he makes it past New York Giants at 5 and nobody trades up to number 6 with the Cleveland Browns to steal him away from the Commanders, I think at number 7, you got to go with Sonny Styles, which is honestly pretty high for an off-ball linebacker, but Sonny is so much more than just an off-ball linebacker. Outside of that, you got a really good crop of kind of second, or maybe even if you want to consider a third tier of talent there in the middle part of the first round. So if you have someone who wants to trade up with you, like maybe the Miami Dolphins at number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals at 10, or the Los Angeles Rams, who are kind of there in that teens range, the key is going to be the package. What's the compensation going to look like? You would love to get a second round pick if you're Adam Peters, and that would probably take a move back to around the 13 range if you really wanted to do that. But even if you get a third round pick and don't move back too far, like maybe the Cincinnati Bengals at 10 want to move up and they're willing to give you a third round pick in exchange for that, it's going to be about the compensation. But certainly there is a path for that. The Washington Commanders had Omar Cooper, Indiana wide receiver, in for a visit. He's a late round, first round projection, expected to go in like the 20s range. So obviously the team is preparing for really anything, including moving back, not just a couple spots, but potentially moving back or even moving up if they get the capital to do so in the back end of the first round.
Adam Peters, the general manager, has said that he doesn't expect for there to be a lot of movement as far as trades in the first round because there are not a lot of quarterbacks that are out there. Normally, if there's quarterbacks available, there's a lot of movement. Although some other GMs have said that's not necessarily the case. What's your take on that?
Yeah, there are some people who think there's going to be a lot of movement in this draft. There are some people who think there's not going to be any movement in this draft. And typically, especially in like the top 10 range, you usually see teams move up for quarterbacks, and you also usually see them move up for edge rushers. And that's where I think there is some potential for some movement in this year's first round, especially early on in the top 10 to 12 picks. So you look at the Arizona Cardinals picking at number 3, they're expected to be targeting an offensive tackle. They don't have their quarterback for the future right now, but they know that they need to bulk up that offensive line for whenever they get that guy. So if they want to take an offensive tackle at 3, they certainly potentially could get the number 1 guy. But if they also want to move back with the team that maybe wants to move up and get an edge rusher, the likelihood of them getting that first tackle off the board, or maybe the second tackle off the board, which is still a really good player, is there, and they can move back and get some more draft capital. I'm also looking at the Tennessee Titans as maybe a little bit of a wild card. They've done a lot of good things in free agency. Mike Borgonzi, their new general manager, comes from a history with the Kansas City Chiefs, an organization that likes to move back and stack draft picks for the future. 2027's draft class is expected to be a lot better than this year's. So if Borgonzi gets a deal with Tennessee where he feels that value is there, you can potentially see them move out. And then the Cleveland Browns at number 6, the pick right before the Washington Commanders at number 7. I think if I had to pick one spot to predict a trade, that's probably the spot that I would predict it at, which of course is going to make a lot of Washington Commanders fans nervous if that moment comes.
Right. All right. So let's bring the guys back in, and I'm going to pose this question to you like we're on a game show.
Okay.
All right.
On a game show.
Ken Harvey, you have the number 7 pick in the NFL draft, and you are the Washington Commanders. Who do you take, or do you want to trade it down?
I don't like this game show. You know what? I mean, that's the pressure. I think the team has enough talent now to trade down. And there's enough talent in the draft to get the people that they need. If you look at what does this team really need right now, the emphasis is on defense and having an aggressive defense. So you can go for the corner as Jamad McCoy. As a lockdown corner, that would be a good pick if you go to 7th round or 7th pick. You can also trade down. I think there's a lot of receivers out there. You need a good center, and we could talk about that. So trading down makes sense as well. I see it as a win-win. We're in a good position with this team.
All right, John Booty.
Hey, Kent.
Same question
Same
to
question.
you. All right, you have the number 7 pick in the NFL draft. You are the Commanders. Are you taking someone? And if so, who are you taking? Or are you trading that pick for more picks?
Well, I'm going to take, I think, this kid here. I looked at his numbers. He's 6'5".
You're talking about the big man, Sonny Styles, who's on fire right now.
Yeah, who's on fire. And I think you look for those once-in-a-generational type players who hopefully have the mentality. He's come from a great organization in Ohio State, right? So if you don't do what Ken suggests or trade down or get more draft picks, and you see this guy, championships are won by defense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you get a defensive-minded player to come in here and buy into the system that DQ and the team has, he can make some noise. He can come in and bring some leadership because he's been in a winning organization. So I guess I got to make it short. Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles, okay. Well, no Jeremiah Love, no Ruben Bain, the edge rusher from
If they're
Miami.
not there, if he's not there, hey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Caleb
got
Downs,
options, right?
Cornell Tate,
Yeah.
okay. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon.
You like him?
I'd like him. I like him.
Yeah, but I mean, tight ends right now, it's
They bring the tight end
every
because
year there's a big need in the NFL based off of the structure of the game, whatever. Tight ends are on the top of the list right now. If they're gonna go down and say, okay, we can get some more draft picks, tight ends will be around. That unfortunately for that player, but fortunately, the Commanders will be a good team could use a tight end.
Right. All right. So let's talk about the draft process. Is the process relevant? And by process, I mean the camps before the draft.
Well, back in the day, back in the Stone Age, in the late 1900s, when we were at the NFL Combine, we didn't know about all this. This is brand new. I mean, not brand new, but we had coaches say, "Listen, John, you at the Combine, I want you to come speak to me," or a scout say, "Come speak to me up in my room, do a private interview, to get to know you, or go back to your school and talk to your coaches about you." This process here, it is what it is, man. They got fans at the NFL Combines now, right? And so, but the process is they want to get the best, the bang for the buck, of the player. Right now it's just a showcase.
You get statistics, you get stuff. You can look at game film, all those things. But then it's also, is that player a good fit for the team? One of the problems, one of the questions people ask is would you take the best player available, or do you get what you really need? And sometimes people would just go, "Oh, this is the best player available," and then they don't fit into the system, they don't fit into the team. That player then becomes, unused or not needed. I think you got to understand who you are as a team, what your team is looking for, and then match that up with the player. And then not just on stats, you look at game film, you look at how he plays. If that person runs to the ball all the time, it's one thing to make a lot of tackles because everything in that system gears everything towards you. It's another thing to see this player going all the way across the field to make a tackle, doing things that in your team and your system is going to be beneficial.
David, we're talking about this draft and the pressure to make the right pick when it comes to this team. So you talked to the coach and the GM, and you've been around them, and you've talked about the pressure to get this right, not just at the number 7 pick, but to get some of the other picks right, because all of that builds into the team.
Yeah, I think the pressure to get the pick right, whether you're talking about the number 7 pick or the 71st pick or the 223rd pick, whatever pick you're talking about, is always there, right? Every professional in that building wants to get it right. They want to nail their evaluations. And as a scout, you want to tell the front office that this guy that I say is a good fit for our organization is actually that. And as a front office decision maker, you want to give the coaching staff the right guy. And as a coach, you want to give the front office and the scouts the vindication of turning that player into the next star or the next contributor for the Washington Commanders. So I think the pressure is always there. I think externally we apply a little bit more pressure sometimes. Coming off of a 5-win season, we're going to say that there's more pressure on a number 7 overall pick. But I think truthfully, when you're inside that operation, inside that process, the pressure is always going to be there. And really the hardest part of it is not the measurements. It's not the clock speed. It's not even necessarily breaking down the tape. It is identifying what you gentlemen were just talking about. It's that heart. It's that competitive spirit because it does show up on tape in certain aspects, like you said, but it's also how do you compete within the organization? How do you compete against yourself when you go out there and you have a bad day of practice? Do you come to your meetings that afternoon refreshed and ready to attack the rest of the day? Or do you come in down, hanging your head, feeling bad for yourself? And how does that bleed into the next practice and so on and so forth? So competitive spirit means a lot of different things, but really what it boils down to is in a league full of world-class athletes, it's the guys who have the world-class mentality that usually have the longest and the best careers.
All right, and you mentioned competition there. One of the things you and I talked about was Nick Allegretti versus Julian Good-Jones for center because Charlie Biotish is gone, and maybe another player fighting for a spot as well. That's leading to your conversation, your mindset of, hey, maybe they could get somebody later on for that position, or maybe you could trade down and get some more picks and then fill that spot with somebody from the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick Allegretti and Julian Good-Jones on paper, not a lot of people really excited about that potential, competition in training camp. Dan Quinn did tell me at the NFL annual league meetings in Phoenix a couple weeks ago that if he sees the need for it, Brandon Coleman could potentially get involved in that competition as well. Though Brandon is going to start off in a competition at left guard with Chris Paul. But like DQ said, if it's best for the front five, best for the team, then you could potentially see Brandon Coleman move into center in that competition. He did get some reps in practices at center at the end of last year, so it's not something that he's completely new to, but it is something that hasn't been really a big part of his resume up to this point. And then you look to the NFL draft. I think when you look at where the Washington Commanders are selecting, Connor Lew, center out of Auburn, is really kind of that top target. Maybe a guy like Sam Hecht out of Kansas State at number 71 in the third round. But even getting into day 3, I really like a guy like Jagger Burton out of Kentucky. He can get to the second level. He's got a little bit of an edge to him, and he certainly kind of fits the profile. And I think really any 3 of those guys, even that 5th round pick, which is pretty rare to say, could potentially come in and compete for that starting job in year 1. I think Nick Allegretti, his IQ, his experience, his leadership at that center position, because it's a lot more than just blocking the guy in front of you to be that center. I think he still probably wins out that competition, at least to start the season. But I think any of those 3 guys, Jake Slaughter from Florida is another one you can throw into the mix. So there's a good amount of center talent, interior offensive line talent in the middle part of the draft there for the Washington Commanders to add to that if they choose to.
All right, David, thank you for the insight on that. Guys, I want to talk to you about this because I often see this in the draft. It is so fascinating to me how these teams will have all this evaluation and all these different things, and they'll still miss. For example, Tom Brady in 2000, 6th round pick. We know how his career turned out, 199th pick. Terrell Davis, Super Bowl MVP, 6th round pick, 196th overall. Shannon Sharp, 1990, 7th round pick, 192nd pick overall. Kurt Warner, a quarterback for the Rams, the Cardinals, and Giants, wasn't even drafted. And this guy is in the Hall of Fame. Warren Moon, not drafted, played in the Canadian League, but he was not drafted coming out of the University of Washington in the Hall of Fame. So how is it that these teams can have all of this emphasis on the draft and be all in and say, we got to make this right, and they miss on certain players and they hit on other ones?
Sometimes it's the need of the team. Like the year we came out, the need was pass rushers. So the first pick in the draft was a pass rusher. So that can kind of dictate the whole draft, and it goes like that. So a lot of good players don't get drafted because the emphasis of the league is this. Sometimes you get the player and they go with the wrong team or go with the right team. Some players can be all world on the right team, but go to another team
and they're not good.
Yeah, fade away. So a lot of those things are important. And then, I guess it's just chemistry as well, and the desire of that player.
So these guys didn't get the high draft pick, but they have that chip on their shoulders to prove, like I had on my shoulder, that I can last in this league. And so that list you just called off, they had chips.
And that's
on their
just
shoulders.
that's just some of them. We
yes.
know all that this happens all the time in the league.
So they can miss out on it. They, for whatever reason, the draft is not.
It's not an exact science.
It's not exact science.
It's not 100%. I was going to say that's the beauty of sports, is that you can have all the technology, all the science you want, but you can't judge the heart. It's hard to dictate and say this is going to make the player great. So
the mentality of it, man. Again, those training camps back in the day, it was something else. Now you got the long OTAs. You live up to it. They put it in the system then. Now, but back then, you got to hit it hard in 2 days.
And not to mention, it's a physical game, so injuries can play a role. There's a lot of factors in there that you just can't really put your finger on.
But I got to tell you, the NFL love it though, because if they can miss out on some lists, I'm just going with that list there.
Diamonds in the rough.
They're not paying all that money right at the beginning. And at the end, like, okay, we got it because it's covered now.
Right. And this team, we're talking about Washington right now, but Washington, they've proven that they can get it right because they got Jaden Daniels in 2024, the star quarterback at number 2. Some of the other players that they've hit on, Hall of Famers in the first round, Champ Bailey, 1999, Sammy Baugh, 1983, Darrell Green, number 28, Ward number 28, Art Monk, number 18 pick in 1980, Charlie Taylor, 1964, and most recently, I talked about Champ Bailey, who's in the Hall of Fame, 2012, RG3, Rookie of the Year on offense, 2020, Chase Young, Rookie of the Year on defense, and 2004 first round pick, number 5 in that draft, Sean Taylor, the late, great Sean Taylor. So it's possible to get it right.
It's very
you just got to do your work, and like you said, you got to judge hard and all these other factors as well. You just got to It's got to be.
And the chemistry of the team, right?
Chemistry
I
of the
mean,
team.
you look at some of the teams that have from the top down, and that chemistry worked. Jack and Cook, when he was here, that chemistry worked.
Right.
Players had a chance to shine. Right. Then you have some teams from the top down that it doesn't work because, just the whole.
And with those first-round picks, the guys they're gonna come in, and the players, the veterans, even the other rookies that come in with you, they're gonna say, "Oh, you that first-round pick. We got to see what you made of.
Right.
You getting all the big bucks. We want to see what you are made of, and how strong is your mentality, because you're gonna be hazed a little bit, because we all in this together. We want to make you better,
right.
and you're gonna make us better. That's the first pick, and then those second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth, seventh pick. They come in and same thing. They got the same mentality.
So for me, when I came in, because same thing, everybody's looking at you, oh, you that guy. We know it. Like, all right, let's go to practice. Back then, you could hit. So I tried to lay people out just to let them know, there's
a reason I'm here.
There's a reason
special
I'm
teams,
here.
a lot of guys. Davis, special teams guy, made big hits on special teams, then became a 2,000-yard running back, right? So you got to make those plays in practice back then.
Right.
Even now, a little different. I'm not saying these guys are not tough because they are.
Right.
I wouldn't want to get out there with them, but back then you got to hit.
Right.
Yeah. And to
hit
show that you want to belong.
Right. All right. David Harrison, I'm going to give you the last word as we wrap this up on the draft with that number 7 pick. Last word for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can happen here, and I think that a lot of people, media and fans alike, are going to have their favorites, and certainly those are warranted. But I think the biggest thing to understand, just looking from behind the scenes, is that there's been a lot of work put into this process. There's been a lot of honest work, which I think is really important. I've covered teams in the past, not necessarily just in Washington, but other NFL franchises as well, where, truth be told, the front office kind of drafted the players that they liked, and it was on the coaches to make it work. And even if the coaches didn't necessarily like the guy that they picked, it wasn't really a part of that process. This one is lockstep all the way from the top down. Josh Harris is not, meddling per se, but he's certainly involved in the process, understanding what's happening, trusting his decision makers to make the right decisions, but not coming into the weekend himself blind to what that process is. And talking to a commander scout recently, they shared with me that new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, David Blau and Durante Jones have been absolutely critical to the process and giving feedback, very, very clear feedback of what they're looking for, who they're looking for, because not a lot of people understand this, but scouts don't spend all year scouting for a scheme. They scout in a vacuum, they scout all the traits, and they list those out. This is the time of year where they really get down to the nitty-gritty of how does this guy's natural ability and talent fit our scheme, and do they have that competitive spirit to fit into the brotherhood that the Washington Commanders are building, and not only compete within the Washington Commanders organization, but thrive, succeed, and make sure that they never pick in the top 10 again.
All right. David Harrison, thank you very much for your time. David Harrison is with Locked On Commanders podcast. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, John and Ken. We're talking about that number 7 draft pick and the rest of it as well, because that's crucial too.
It all boils down to this, right? This organization has been together for 3 years, 3 draft picks, 3 drafts together.
Right.
I did it great with Daniels. Second year, I forget the young man's name. This year, they got to get it right, because not too long ago, they was a game away from the Super Bowl.
Right.
So it's all about that organization, the Commanders organization, from the ownership to the general managers, the coaching staff. Do they trust the process?
Yes.
Do they trust and listen to one another? Can they get it right that way, by trusting each other?
Right.
This is their signature year, right? The first year, man, you did well, but it could have been luck. Second year, you got ups and downs
injuries.
and all the injuries and all that stuff. This is the year you start proving yourself. You're building on the future, but you should have enough to identify who you are and what you are as a team with the picks you have and everybody that you're bringing in. And so I think this will be a great year for the team. The Commanders will show some people some
Those
stuff.
past
It'll be
picks
good.
built the foundation, set the foundation. You got your quarterback.
Right.
Now you got your line, and you got to fill in from there.
And the last thing, what you just brought up, remember the history of what this team represents. Some of those great players and how great you can be and how great this community could be if you win.
Well, they're circled around you.
Oh, yeah,
I learned
absolutely.
that just
Yeah.
playing against them.
Yeah, and I learned that just by coming out there watching you guys play. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. The number 7 pick, and the draft is going to be in Pittsburgh, April 23rd. That is when we will learn who the Commanders will either pick at number 7, or they will trade down and get some more picks. So the future will start then for the Washington Commanders. We'll see who's got next. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.